This is Johnny Bluestar. Welcome to Threshold, a global media event. Is the universe just a random dance of atoms, or is it a manifestation of a supremely intelligent architect? Can its purpose, or our purpose here on Earth, be adequately assessed? Can we commune with it, know its intentions, cooperate with its direction? Here, we define threshold as a gateway state of awareness, allowing mankind to cross into a place of real cognition. Threshold allows us to approach questions of higher reality through the door of experience, rather than mere belief. Welcome to Threshold, where we tear away the veil from commercial media, bringing our audience and participants into another realm of reality and enhanced communication. Well, welcome back to Threshold, everybody. We're talking to Dr. Hugo Rodier about the frontiers of nutrition, medicine, and the application of physics and spirituality to healing. But with all that conversation, let's talk a little bit more about the medical approach that most patients are likely to experience from some of their medical practitioners from time to time. Rod?
Yeah, Doctor, I read in your blog that you say that science is firmly entrenched in an Aristotelian extreme, where ideas that do not fit a certain orthodoxy are marginalized and even excommunicated, quote unquote. Scientists who question the status quo are cut off from funding to pursue their research, fired, and worse, discredited as quacks. That attitude is predominant in clinical practices around the country. In your blog, you tell the story of a patient's sad experience with a medical doctor, a scientist, if you wish. That's how you described it. It's about a patient that went to see the doctor, and the doctor dismissed him from his practice because he refused to take a specific drug. The doctor berated him on his preference for natural therapies. He said, there is no evidence that they work. This is what you wrote in your blog. You wrote that, of course, it is a doctor's right to dismiss a patient from her practice, but the matter did not end there. The doctor wrote in the patient's chart an official document that can have serious consequences on a patient's health care, that the patient was deluded and depressed and needed to be treated with an antidepressant. He added that the patient was arrogant in his belief that he knew more about him, that is, the doctor. What is all this about? Why are doctors, that is, some doctors, so rigid and so authoritarian?
Well, there's a lot there. But let me tell you my first reaction at hearing what I written. I just laugh, I chuckle. I mean, what can you do? I cry. So I don't take any of this seriously. I think it's entertaining that we still see such attitudes from the medical profession. But I can tell you categorically that there are many, many, many good doctors out there who are waking up and don't want anything to do with this paradigm that is very toxic, that is, number one, not communicating forthrightly with the patient and giving the patient the right to express their opinion, refuse, or accept treatment. That's an inalienable right that every patient has. Having said that, I'm afraid that some of those attitudes, as you can see, still are out there, born of sheer ignorance. I mean, what we're talking about, it's written in the best of journals. So it tells me that doctors like that are getting their education, from whom? From Big Pharma, who comes in with very good-looking drug reps to tell them about the latest and greatest drug, which now have names that are totally ridiculous. And then they get an invitation to go to a plush resort to be educated by the pharmaceutical. So all that was totally predicted by William Osler, the founder of integrative medicine, a Canadian from Canada, or from McGill University. But he predicted when Fleschner, at the turn of the last century, was so hot and heavy about German medicine, which is very scientific. Osler predicted that, okay, all that's well and good, and we need that, true, but we mustn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Medicine is a humanistic social science, and we mustn't lose track of nutrition, relationships, environmental issues, the soul of man and woman. And I'm afraid that's what we see today. Osler was right. This is in no way to denigrate the scientific approach. I hope that is clear. We need a balance. That's what we're talking about, balance, after all. I'm highly scientific, and nothing I've told you today I have not read in good journals. And so, in fact, last night reading a terrific book, Altered Genes, Twisted Truth, by Mr. Drucker, on how GMO foods are a great example of what we're talking about. First of all, the scientific data was manipulated to convince politicians and other interested groups that GMO foods are safe. And in fact, the big catastrophe, the big problem with tryptophan, you may recall, tryptophan for a while was demonized, that amino acid that helps you sleep better, high in cashews, by the way.
It was a contaminated batch, right, from Japan?
Exactly. It was contaminated because they used a GMO bacteria to overproduce, mass-produce tryptophan with toxic consequences. And so tryptophan was blamed in order to hide the evidence that the problem was a GMO bacteria. And from his book, Mr. Drucker's book, Altered Genes, Twisted Truth, I'm going to read you a sentence. This is Eisenhower, page 59. Eisenhower is well known to our circles by that famous speech, and stepping down, he cautioned Americans about the military-industrial complex. Well, in that same speech, Eisenhower goes on to say, he then cautioned, quote, in holding scientific research and discovery in respect as we should, we must also be alert to the equal and opposite danger that public policy could itself become the captive of scientific technological elite, unquote. And what are we talking about? Big pharma, insurance companies, GMO companies, Monsanto, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what's going on. And then these people blame harmless natural substances like tryptophan, and then we demonize the whole supplement industry and nutritional industry so that the competition against big pharma is minimized, ridiculed. In fact, the very word alternative, which I despise, is pejorative. There's nothing alternative about food, you see. So, we cannot understand these things, health issues, unless we look at the bigger picture. Hermetic thinking.
Well, I think that part of the problem here is that this authoritarianism that, is taking place with Big Pharma, it ripples down into medical education, and it ripples into the research. Billions and billions of dollars are being expended on pharmaceutical research, when what we need is research to the very thing that we're talking about today, research on food, nutrition, cellular metabolism, to try and really understand how we should cure people instead of just mask over their symptoms.
Exactly what drugs do. And all that research, vaunted research, you have hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of articles showing how the evidence is manipulated in 2/3 of research. That the statistics are manipulated to favor the drug they're studying. Of course, if you pay me to run a study on drug X with my patient, and you pay me a lot of money, how likely am I to produce a bad result. Well, it turns out that if I do, that study is likely not to be published. So we have a whole lot of evidence that negative studies saying, say, a drug not working are not published. A great example of that is antidepressants. And look, I'm not saying get off antidepressants and don't take them. There's a certain percentage of people who should be on them. But I assure you, the vast majority of people on antidepressants could safely get off of them if monitored by a good doctor that understands nutrition, hermetic thinking, relationships, toxic environment, et cetera, et cetera. So when a drug comes marketed saying, it's the best thing in sliced bread, you have to wonder who paid for that research. And so, it all boils down to pride and greed and these basic things we hear at church on Sundays. And I'm afraid that the pharmaceutical industry, in my opinion, is highly immoral.
Well, it just seems that the whole arena, which is not just the medical arena and the educational arena, but the political arena is just sort of polluted. What do you think, Rob?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm starting to hear my voice get a little passionate. I apologize.
Uh-oh.
These things have been a thorn in my side, a cross on my back so long. And you know what? As I get older, I mellow out, but I can still sense a little fire there, and I guess it makes for good radio. But really, I try not to let these things bother me, because we're not going to solve them anytime soon. So in the quietness of my private consult in Utah, I try to chip away one patient at a time, and thanks to people like you, I get to reach other people, and thanks to good publishers who have published my books, I get to reach a few more. And so we just chip away. You know what? I'm hopeful. I think things will change, but I'm afraid things will get worse before they get better. Again, these cycles of creation, destruction, not only apply to all nature and our body cells, as above, so below, but they also apply to societies. Societies come and go, revolutions. And I'm not advocating a revolution here. I'm just saying that we can have a quiet revolution like Gandhi. People are waking up. We're going through a process of destruction of these institutions that have been cemented to rip us off. I mean, there's no other way to say it. It just boggles the mind that intelligent people, highly intelligent people, can be brainwashed to believe that you can restore health through a pharmaceutical product. I mean, it's just amazing to me.
Well, we're going to get right back into this in just a couple of minutes. We have to take a break now. But, I'm saying about our whole culture, which we call democratic, then we call it a democracy. It's more like a hypnocracy, where you have so many people, quote, brainwashed, who are highly professional, highly intelligent, and that is part of the problem that we have to face. We have to learn how to get through that kind of a veil in all sorts of fields and in political life. And we'll be right back in just a minute. This is Johnny Bluestar. I've worked as a lyricist with Patricia Welch for over 5 years, along with Russian composer Edgar Ahrens, a friend and colleague. Her ability as a singer is simply amazing. She brings a unique and dramatic flair to every song she sings. Over the next few months, we shall be releasing a number of these songs, part of an album called Hadley's Castle. Meanwhile, Patricia has been busy creating a super enjoyable collection of classic standards in an exciting 46-song, 3-CD collection.
Music for great entertaining introduces Cocktails, Dinner, and Dessert with Patricia Welch. 3 hours of continuous music. 46 of the all-time classic standards, spanning decades of hit songs. Going to a friend's home for dinner? Cocktails, dinner, and dessert with Patricia also makes the perfect hostess gift. This 3-CD compilation is the perfect background music that sets just the right mood for any dinner party.
I'm crazy for feeling so lonely. There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy.
To purchase this album, just go to patriciawelch.com/CD. That is patriciawelch.com/CD. You won't be disappointed.
It is the 15th century. El Tesoro de Cielo, a Spanish treasure ship, sends a scouting expedition to a strange island. Golden statues surrounding them prove the enormity of their find. Suddenly, hordes of ghoulish creatures with scaly green flesh and skeletal wings descend upon them from the sky.
What do you think of this, Rufio?
These creatures are fragile, Captain. We can take them with our swords.
They seem supernatural. Who knows what powers they possess?
Fallen angels, weakened by their treason.
My God, are you saying they're Nephilim, the devil's host?
I'm saying, whatever they are, we can take them. Do any of you cowards dare join me?
Up against sharp knife-like nails and hideous fangs, the men's swords rip into slimy green flesh. Though black blood pours copiously from their half-naked bodies, creatures miraculously persist. Can the crew survive this bloody, cursed battle?
Find out more by Googling The Thrice Born, a new sci-fi supernatural novel by Carlos Lopez Avery and Johnny Bluestar. Google with the words Carlos Johnny Kendall, The Thrice Born. That's Carlos Johnny Kendall, The Thrice Born.
You know, we've been talking about in the last break about why are such intelligent people, and you cannot say that the medical doctors, the pharmaceutical industry, the medical education community, that these people are not very intelligent. They are very intelligent. And are they sinister? Are they trying to hurt us? Well, I think that somewhere in this group of people, some people probably don't care. But I think a lot of them really do care, and I think that they are actually believing that pharmaceutical products in this kind of abundance can really help people and are the road to curing people. Do you agree with that, Doctor? Are they hypnotized to that degree?
Yes, I do. You know, I up to this year, I've been a delegate for the Utah Medical Association and chairman of the Environmental Public Health Committee. And it's something I did for about 15 years. And I remember when I first began to open my mouth on these big convention meetings, yearly meetings, you know, I raised a few eyebrows, but they were kind to me and they would listen. Last time I went, docs were coming up to me and shaking my hand and saying, thanks for educating us and thanks for sticking to your guns. And so these are good people. Docs tend to be, and I used to be a member of the admissions committee for the Utah School of Medicine. So I had a vote on who gets to be a doctor. And I tell you, great experiences with my colleagues. You know, they are very conscious that this small revolution afoot, and it's all geared by the golden age of nutrition. So there are many highlights. I think that there are doctors who are in it for the money, but you know what? You find that in every profession. So again, I don't want to dismiss the pharmaceutical approach at all, because you and I would need a whole lot of drugs if we get hit by a Mack truck and wind up in the ICU.
Yes,
so
and of course, I wasn't trying to disparage that use of that kind of use of drugs, right, of pharmaceutical drugs. But but when you start using those type of drugs for everything, then you have some serious health problems.
Right, that's the issue right there. So I'm glad that you're aware of that, because it's a point that needs to be made when we're talking this way, because we don't want to create the impression that there's no good in the pharmaceutical approach. If you have a heart attack or a stroke, you know, I'll never forget Rush Limbaugh. After he had his heart attack, he waddled out of the emergency room proclaiming that we had the best healthcare system in the world. And you know what? He was right. When it comes to acute care, emergent care, we're the best. But when it comes to chronic diseases, we are not doing so well. A great example is the purple pill. The purple pill to block acid should be used yesterday, IV, if you're having an ulcer and you're bleeding. But when you have it over the counter to treat reflux because you're eating a lot of pizza, well, that's a problem. Because you're blocking the absorption of key nutrients, B vitamins, minerals, and you're disrupting the balance of the gut flora. In fact, all those problems have been associated with osteoporosis, depression, and now heart attacks. The purple pill.
You know, I would like to read something from your book again. Do you mind?
Sure, go ahead.
A shocking report came out of the International Medical News Group in April 2004. Doctors should not spend more than 5 minutes with patients, since patient satisfaction does not increase by spending any more time. Is this report accurate? I believe so. Most Americans expect their doctor to prescribe a drug, likely the one they have seen heavily advertised on TV for whatever real or imaginary ailment that brings them to the office. Patient satisfaction is assured once the doc writes the prescription. What's the point in lingering to chit-chat? A vending machine could handle this mode of practicing medicine. I think that's tragic and hilarious at the same time, isn't it?
It's all too true. Again, in discussions like this, we must be fair. A whole lot of the healthcare system is a healthcare system we deserve as a society, meaning most people, that's what they want. They don't want to change your lifestyles. They just walk in and they want a drug. Specifically, they just saw advertised on TV. And so we can't lay it all at the feet of the good docs and the system itself. Even our educational system is the system we want. Everything we have in our society is a reflection of what we deserve. And that's another thing about balance and understanding spiritual issues. Even though I make noise and I get passionate and all that, I deeply understand this. I forget sometimes, but the point is, there's no need to worry and complain too much, because things are the way they need to be. And as much as we want to be activists and get out there with our posters and chants and at the Capitol building, things are the way they are for a reason. Even wars, this is hard to understand for people who are not well-grounded in spiritual thinking, because the issue of good and evil gets tangled up, and let's go fight evil, let's do good. Yes, I understand all that, but deeply, at some point, I think it's healthy to say, Lord, thy will be done, not mine. Lord, things are the way they are, I'll accept them. And I know that it may strike some people as defeatist, but really it's not. It's quite liberating. But
I think
that's a whole discussion for another day.
I think it's within the experience of the divine presence and guidance that we should be dealing with these situations, and not just from our lower emotions of revenge, anger, and so forth. And it's hard to strike that balance sometimes, because there are things that are obviously ridiculous, but yet we can't seem to change them. And yes, we have to accept the way they are and actually realize that this is what the world is offering us to face. But still, we need to ask guidance, because we can also be moved to do something about things at the right time.
Exactly. I'm glad that you put it that way. It's a complex issue, and I don't pretend to understand it very well. I must say that in my old age, I'm pretty content with the way things are. And, it makes for great radio, though, to start rapping.
Well, I don't know. I think that there's going to have to be some changes, and I hope that those changes will be divinely guided, because millions of people are suffering horrible lifestyles and horrible ways of dying because of this disruption in the natural order.
Exactly. So I'm glad I understand the paradox of it all. It really is a bit of a paradox.
It is difficult, because you have to accept the way things are. Otherwise, that's one of the ways you have access to this other realm, by realizing that in a certain sense, everything is the way it's supposed to be. And your role in it is to try and reach that higher level of awareness.
Right. You know, I've studied a lot of Zen and Buddhism. I lived in monasteries, and I'll never forget this one story, because the Zen people, they get into stories and koans and things like that, but it goes something like this. Young man is thought to be quite dull, not good in working with his hands. So too bad, he's sent out in the country, punishment. But he learns to ride horses. Wow, great. He comes to town riding a horse, great. He falls off a horse and breaks his leg. Oh, that's too bad. Well, war breaks out. All the healthy males are sent to war but him, because he broke his leg, etc., etc. The story goes. But you know, to accept the divine plan by the Supreme Architect and say, thy will be done, is quite powerful. And it's something, even disease, even when we are struck ill, you know, instead of saying, woe me and rolling over, a better attitude is say, Lord, what is it that I need to learn from this? Where's the lesson? Where's the pony under this pile? You know?
Well, we're going to have to take a break now, but one thing I want to look forward to is there is one thing we can do. We can learn to eat right and to handle our diets properly, and that's what I'm going to, I and Rod are going to investigate in the next segments, because we want to know some answers, things that people can do without protesting to Washington, but just by going into their kitchen or their supermarket and choosing wisely. So we'll be right back right after this break.
The following is from West Side Warrior, the memoir of Ray Boylan, a Korean War veteran and crime fighter. He was there fighting in the world's coldest battlefield when the Chinese communists invaded.
Desperate squad members ran past our foxhole yelling, "Get the hell out of here, there's too many of them." Again, we saw the Chinese soldiers charging in with opium-induced mindlessness, oblivious of our bullets. Again, we heard the bugles and whistles. Climbing out of our foxhole, Bob dropped 2 hand grenades behind us, and I threw one over my shoulder. Bullets whizzing by our heads, Bob and I became bolts of lightning flashing across the mountainside. Like a hideous film, desperate scenes like this played out on the Tokong Pass for 3 days. Sometimes I played in the scene. Sometimes I could only watch and wonder if it were real, or if I'd be suddenly jolted out of my trance by an RKO usher saying, "Hey, did you kids sneak in here?"
To acquire this book, Google westsidewarrior.boylan.kindle. Boylan is spelled Boylan. That's Westside Warrior, Boylan, Kindle.
Nowadays, if you are a serious business person, just getting assistance from someone with a license and a bit of experience may not be sufficient. In fact, your realtor actually needs to be knowledgeable enough to be one of your top advisors. Whether you are facilitating a giant merger or selling your company, there's a lot at stake besides your finances. There is the future value of your current investment, financial freedom, integrity, and overall reputation. If you need this kind of assistance, Sandra LaFlamme is a real estate expert with the experience, reputation, and knowledge qualified to assist you in all your key transactions. Sandra LaFlamme, real estate services with integrity and conscience. Contact her today at 888-366-8070. That's Sandra LaFlamme at 888-366-8070.
Welcome back to Threshold Radio. We're with Dr. Hugo Rodier. Doctor, your 8-week cellular detox diet, as you call it, aims to help people reverse their chronic disease. Tell us more about it.
Sure. It's pretty basic, pretty simple. You know, like I was telling you before, it all boils down to eating a plant-based diet to harness more energy and information, and avoiding processed foods. You know, those are that's 90% of it right there. Now, the whole thing, again, is messed up because we live in a plutocracy. Government of the rich, where simple things are obfuscated to sell more. Incidentally, would you allow me to finish a couple of questions that were left unanswered from before I...
Of course. Go ahead.
Because they're related. The paleo diet thing, I did not want to create the impression that you shouldn't eat that way. There are some people who are programmed to eating that way. The same is true on the other side, vegetarians. There are people that are programmed to doing better that way. And if we're going to eat animal protein, I say eat it as organic as possible, as lean as possible. Turkey, fish, chicken over red meat any day. Vegetarians also are flawed because a whole lot of vegetarians turn to sugar. A whole lot of vegetarians are not that healthy because they're eating a lot of processed foods and sugar. So you can see that any diet can have a dark side, if you will. Then as far as the diabetes thing is concerned, when it comes to diabetes non-insulin dependent, totally 100% reversible. When you are needing insulin because your pancreas is totally dead, I'm afraid that is not reversible. So that distinction needs to be made. I can tell you, though, that by eating real well and doing all kinds of good things, exercising and supplements, you can greatly reduce the insulin you need because you're improving the reception of insulin at the cellular level. Because a whole lot of people are insulin resistant, and that's the main problem with insulin. Not so much a lack of insulin, but insulin resistance. So having said that, let me answer that basic question that you posed about a basic 8-week plan. What I tell people is to start out with a fast. Fasting has been shown to be extremely healthy twice a month. The benefits of fasting are amazing, most of which are related to giving the gut a rest, because our guts are overwhelmed, leaky gut and all that. We talked about that. So by fasting for a day before they start on my program has better results. The second day I say eat a lot of grapes, and then you start. For 2 weeks, eat only lean meat, all veggies, and nuts. With a shovel, don't go hungry. The thing about limiting calories is totally flawed. No, people need to be satisfied. To go around starving all the time, limiting calories won't work. Of course, we want to be satisfied, and as we heal the brain-gut connection, we will be satisfied with less food because we have a lot of signals between the brain and the gut. So as we heal that connection, the brain-gut connection, people will be satisfied and full with a lot less food. So the goal really during those 2 weeks, because you're rather limited to only lean meats, veggies, and nuts, is to be satisfied, to not starve. And people start losing weight immediately, and they will see that they're not eating as much. The third and fourth week, you introduce fruit. One at a time, you become a bit of a detective. It turns out that a whole lot of people develop food allergies because they have unbalanced gut microbes. That's the problem that drives a whole lot of food allergies and food sensitivities. And so you begin to add fruit. Make it as organic as possible, this whole process. A whole lot of preservatives, chemicals in the food add to the toiling of the gut. Remember, we talked about toiling, T-O-I-L. And so we need to give the gut a rest so that you absorb better. So that's why you add food slowly. Adding fruits definitely part of this process. And then the fifth and sixth week, you begin to add legumes, peanuts, lentils, beans, soy. And then the last 2 weeks, you begin to add grains back in, whole grains. This is where a lot of people discover whether they're paleo or not, incidentally. Proof of the pudding's in the eating. So if you put grains back in, particularly wheat, and a whole lot of problems start to return, you don't feel good and confusion or mental fogginess, then you begin to see that certain foods are not good for you. And I see a significant amount of people numbers of people who will react unfavorably to the grains and to wheat. So they may be paleo. Although they ought to try other grains, don't give up after trying wheat. You ought to try other grains, and there's so many out there. Because, not eating grains can be a little boring. So I don't want to condemn people not to eat grains at all. I must say, though, that in doing all this, you've got to keep in mind the glycemic index, meaning that the foods, the first 2 weeks, lean meats, veggies, and nuts have the least sugar and the most nutrients. So energy and information. As you go down the list, all you're doing is adding calories, very few nutrients. So it pays to always fill up with the top, with the first 2 weeks when you return to a balanced diet. So always fill up with veggies, nuts, and lean meats, and eat fruit, legumes, and grains in moderation for fun, for variety. So you can see that in 5 minutes, one can describe a diet that is very simple, practical, and well-grounded in science.
Well, I noticed that. Go ahead, Rod.
Yes, I'm here.
I didn't say anything. You go ahead, Johnny.
Okay, sorry. I found that I want to tell you an experience that I had, Doctor. I was literally probably dying of asthma. I had coughed for 6 months. I couldn't sleep anymore. I couldn't even talk because I was coughing so much. And I stumbled on a health food store where somebody recommended a change in diet. And I had been told that this was incurable by doctors and so forth. And I reluctantly tried this diet. But I want to point out that at the time that I was getting asthma, all these childhood allergies came back, like cats and carpets and all kinds of things like that. And I went on this diet, and in 3 days I could breathe again. And this diet is very similar to what you're talking about. And after that, I noticed that all these allergies that came back went away again. So can we think that some of these sensitivities, once the leaky gut situation is improved, that some of these allergies will go away? Some of
Absolutely.
these reactions to food.
I hear your story all the time, every day at my clinic. You see, the inflammation. Let's start from the beginning. Asthma is an inflammatory condition where the bronchioles, the tubes that take air to the lungs, are inflamed, right? And
yes.
So you get inhalers to address that inflammation and the spasms that are caused by the inflammation of those tubes. Well, an intelligent person, a child, will ask why. Where's that inflammation coming from? Well, we're told that it's from pollution, from your immune system. Yes, but let's just unpackage that a little bit. It turns out that bad air out there that triggers asthma gets to you because the lining of your bronchioles are toiling, T-O-I-L, toxic, oxidized, inflamed, and lacking in adequate mitochondrial function. And so what is driving that? All that is coming from the gut. Turns out that the gut is 2/3 of your immune system, so the inflammation that eventually ends up in your arteries, your bronchioles, your joints, is coming from the gut. Okay? And so leaky gut is at play here because the lining of the gut itself is toiling, so all the inflammation generated by bad foods, toxins in the environment, are coming from the gut. So you heal leaky gut, and you do that when you eat real well, which is what we're saying, and then asthma goes away. Word of caution, never be without your inhalers, because your immune system has memory, and perhaps exposed to certain pollutant or toxin or cat, the asthma may come back and grab you, and you don't want to be without inhalers. Having said that, I hardly ever hear that. So I just sort of, just to be safe, you don't want to be exposed to some black swan out there that can trigger your asthma again.
Well, I'm thankful for saying that I have been cured for decades now without hardly anything coming back at all.
Excellent.
But at the time, it was I was facing what I thought would be a very inappropriately premature death. Look, we're running into another break fairly soon, and I want to make sure by the end of this program, when we come back, that you can give our audience some real good contact information, how to get a hold of your books and your website and things like that. I want that to be the first thing that we discuss after the break, because we're going to have to be saying goodbye pretty soon. And this has been such a remarkable program. We want to make sure that everybody has the information they need. So we're going to go to a break now, and we'll be back soon.
I've worked with Russian composer Edgar Ahrens for quite a few years, building an inventory of songs, many of which feature singer-performer Patricia Welch. We will soon be releasing these songs, components of an album and a musical in progress called Hadley's Castle. When Edgar and I first got together, I was amazed by the brilliance of his musical scores created for movies, TVs, and animations. Here is a sample of the work he did on the Russian TV series, available now on Amazon, called The Secret Agent's Memoir, which had 2 seasons. This score is called Escape and was created for the first season. I am very pleased to say that Bridge of Light Productions, a division of New Galaxy Enterprises, is proud to be the contact point for television and film companies seeking information about this amazing composer's work. If you're in the entertainment business and wish to know more, contact me at johnnybluestar@gmail.com. That's johnnybluestar@gmail.com. New Galaxy Enterprises is a media company specializing in wide-ranging content like novels, nonfiction books, screenplays, commercial advertising, web content, etc. One of our most esteemed providers is illustrator Robert W. Zalo. I work on all my most important projects like book covers, logos, web design elements with Robert. As an illustrator, he worked on the Ignatz-nominated comic book, The Expert's Guide to Killing Things That Go Bump in the Night. His skills encompass advertising, magazine illustrations, gaming, comic books, TV production, and scenic painting. His clients include Comcast, Adelphia, Haven Talent, ForceWorks, High Octane Theater, Star Creative Advertising. If you wish to contact Robert, go to johnnybluestar.com and let me know. That's johnnybluestar.com. For artist, illustrator Robert Zalo, an essential component of all the work we do. Maybe he can help you too.
Boots in Manhattan is a coming-of-age novel by Ray Boylan and Johnny Bluestar. It is about a young Tom Boots Raymond who grows up in New York in the 1940s, who was a member of a street gang.
My friends and I were about to start our own game of stickball when Rabbit Lacey, the head of the Rattlers, came up to us and tried to move in on our game. We were called Dwarves, the youngest members of the stupid gang.
Hey, Kevin, I need you to get some gloves and some stuff I left at my place.
No, this is our game.
Hey, are you my good little dwarf or what?
You've been calling me a dwarf since I was 6. We're not your personal slaves, pal.
Hey, what is this? A dwarf rebellion? All right, big guy. We ditched the dwarf thing. We make you guys regular rattlers.
No, it's too late.
He looked at Jay and me. We looked away. Rabbit was now angry, and he pushed Kevin hard with the palms of his hand. Kevin tried to ram him in the stomach, but he stepped aside, throwing Kevin into the curb where he fell to the ground, bleeding profusely at the knee. Still, he managed to get up.
My street.
Kevin shouted at Rabbit, pointing at him with an angry index finger.
Find out more by Googling Boots in Manhattan, a 1940s coming-of-age novel, part 1 of the novel series The Foot Soldier by Ray Boylan and Johnny Bluestar. Google with the words Boots in Manhattan, Ray Johnny Kindle. That's Boots in Manhattan, Ray Johnny Kindle.
Dr. Rodier. Thank you, Doctor, for being with us today. We have certainly enjoyed talking with you very much, I must say that. And everything that we have discussed with you today has been of extreme value to us, and I'm sure to the audience as well. And we know that you are in the process right now of opening a new office. Perhaps you can tell us how and when prospective patients can get in touch with you and how they can find your books. And please let them know how they can experience that wonderful health lesson on your website.
Well, thank you very much. Before I go into that, let me finish this asthma thing. You know, it's quite compelling what's going on here because people just get an inhaler. They don't get educated about pollution, the sources of pollution, the politics and economics behind all that. But also they don't hear about the correlation between use of antibiotics and asthma. Turns out that if kids are given antibiotics under a year of age, their risk of asthma triples. And so you know what's going on here, I'm sure. You're messing with the gut flora, which is your immune system, which leads to the problems that we talked about in the last segment. So as far as getting a hold of my clinic, and I do phone consults as well, the best way is to go to chronicdiseasedoc.com. And then you don't have to struggle with the spelling of my name, HugoRodier.com, which is a French spelling. Having said that, you can also get my books from Amazon.com. But I make more money if you go to my website. There's a phone number there that we're taking appointments. We'll open the new clinic October 1st, and I was at another clinic up until last week. So a bit of a transition, but it should not cause any problems to anyone who would like to have a nutritional health consult.
Well, Doctor, thanks so much for being with us today. And for myself, who I just started working with you as a patient, it's been truly an enlightening experience, and it's a real privilege to meet someone whose heart is in the right place. So we're going to have to go now. I should say stay tuned, everybody, for next week. And thank you, my wife, Debbie, for their help in preparing this program. Also, I want to thank Edgar Ahrens, who did some of the musical interludes, and Patricia Welch, who joined in singing some of these songs today. And finally, I want to give tremendous credit to the great Hassan Khan, who helped me with the websites, YouTube promotions, commercials, and many other elements supporting the show. Join us next week to meet again with Dr. Rodier, when we will discuss the essence of true masonry, a deeply misunderstood subject that Dr. Rodier has researched for many years. We're going to go out with a song by Patty Greer. This is a wonderful filmmaker, songwriter, composer, musician, and a leader in the explorations of crop circles. Hear her terrific story in our complete program. And also, I would encourage everyone to go to www.pattygreer.net and get a hold of her movies for $5. You can see some of the most original documentaries if you want to, streaming, or you can buy them very inexpensively. pattygreer.net. And now I'd like to present her song as we move along here. May peace prevail on earth.